State of the Union, a day when Democrats and Republicans alike find themselves on one of either side of the coin. They are either extremely excited, energized, mobilized, or in complete and utter despair. And I know this because I actually went to the State of the Union in 2023, and boy oh boy was that an interesting night. You may know that as the night that Marjorie Taylor Greene created this image. Next time I will give you a trigger warning when I bring her on screen. But that night was very interesting for me. I was sitting directly next to Mayor Eric Adams, and I was the only person in my section who refused to address him or shake his hand or introduce myself to him at all, because even back then I didn't like him. The congresswoman who invited me, Nanette Barragán, she was just so incredible, and she actually helped take me down to the House floor after the State of the Union was over, and that's where I got to meet President Biden for the first time, but also where I got to confront Matt Gaetz in person. Congresswoman calls him over, and he comes over, and I stick out my hand, shake his hand before he can even fully register who I am. He shakes my hand, and I lean in and I tell him, I just want to say thank you for helping me raise all that money for abortion. And he dropped my hand and starts muttering something about, oh yeah, I heard you had trouble finding a way to spend it, blah, blah, blah. As he's walking down the hallway away from me, basically running away from me. And I stand by that. So let this serve as a lesson. If you dislike me, if you are an adversary of mine, just know, I always stand on business, okay? The State of the Union last night, boy, did it was not very reassuring. I don't want to talk obsessively about every single thing Donald Trump said in this. Instead, I want to focus on what were some of the more impactful, I would say, cultural / social media moments, and also what was the Democratic response to a lot of the claims made by Donald Trump in the State of the Union. As for the actual State of the Union itself, I think that the Lincoln Project did a really good job at summarizing what actually was going on in the State of the Union.
Joe Biden, transgender. Woke Elon Musk.
That was about it. A lot of talk about how the economy was horrible, but also the best economy in the world. I want to note here, the economy that so many Republicans claim to love and adore of 2017, 2018, hey bucko, that was not Donald Trump's economy, that was Barack Obama's economy. And the reason why we had so much economic unease during the Biden administration, even though this man basically steered a sinking ship away from an iceberg, was because Donald Trump's economic policies in his first term were so atrocious. Overall, embarrassing, degrading. I want to go through and just give some of the highlights of Democrats who I think did a really great job. Senator Adam Schiff recorded a summary of the State of the Union, and I think that his introduction is just so accurate to what was actually going on.
So if you made the decision tonight not to watch the 1 hour and 40-minute State of the Union, I have a few things to say. First of all, good decision. Good decision. You would have been better off watching an hour and 40 minutes of the Home Shopping Channel than watching that. There was nothing in this address for you. So what did he talk about for an hour and 40 minutes? Well, first of all, he talked about himself. He talked about himself an awful lot. And of course, it was along the lines of he's the greatest this and doing the greatest that of all time of any president. He even compared himself to George Washington. I kid you not. That was interspersed with lies about Social Security, lies about immigrants, and lies about everything else, which was interspersed with he's the greatest victim in the world. He's victimized this way, and he was unfairly treated this way. That was interspersed with occasional references to people in the gallery. There were occasional instances of unintended humor, such as when he attacked unelected bureaucrats, not realizing, of course.
He did do that. He attacked unelected bureaucrats after applauding Elon Musk. The call is coming from inside the White House.
That the biggest unelected bureaucrat was sitting in the gallery, and that was Elon Musk. But apart from that, nothing in it for you. For all the promises that he would bring down the cost of living, he spent more time talking about Greenland and the Panama Canal and the stupid Gulf of America idea than he did talking about anything he's doing to bring down the cost, because of course costs are going way up under his watch. If you thought he was going to make good on promises to protect seniors and healthcare, he broke that promise tonight too. In fact, they're going to make drastic cuts to Medicaid, that is clear.
Last week, the House Republican caucus passed a budget resolution. And to give you an idea of what that is, the budget resolution that was passed by Republicans in the House of Representatives is a blueprint, okay? The budget itself is the House. It's an actual house. This blueprint is how they want to build the house, but it doesn't have all the exact measurements on it. It's just an outline. So the bill that was passed last week is not actually the budget. It is the proposal of how they are going to build the budget. So in that proposal, it had $800 billion in cuts to Medicaid. And that was just one example of very critical, crucial government programs that House Republicans are just foaming at the mouth to cut.
The only promise he gave any indication of meeting tonight was the promise to billionaires to cut their taxes. That is evidently the only thing he's really committed to doing.
God, I love Adam Schiff so much. If you didn't know, I recently interviewed him at the Contrarian News, if you want to go watch that. But in that conversation that I had with Senator Schiff, this is about a month and a half ago now. This was right after Marco Rubio was confirmed to be the Secretary of State. And I asked him, there were a lot of Democrats. I believe actually Marco Rubio got 100% of senators' votes to be Secretary of State. So I asked Adam Schiff, what does this say about Marco Rubio? But more importantly, how is this going to fare for him? Because he was the only person who got that much consensus in being confirmed to his seat. And I think we got part of our answer in the State of the Union last night.
So what's going to happen to someone like that in the Trump administration? The first administration is not encouraging. People who went in who were more or less normal mainstream people with experience were thrown under the bus by the president, and he would savage them. So everybody seems to think they will be different. The question is not really whether they'll be tested. These people are all going to be tested. It's just how soon that test is going to come and whether they pass.
Adam Schiff, once again, hitting the nail on the head. I especially think that this is very poignant after Marco Rubio, his just general reaction to the Trump-Zelensky J.D. Vance meeting that happened at the White House. And this is why I feel about Marco Rubio how I feel about libertarians. Follow me here. A lot of libertarians will say things like, I'm pro-choice. I'm pro-public education. Blah, 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 blah. And they'll say these things, and then they'll vote for people who want to ban abortion, who want to get rid of the Department of Education, and they'll vote for them because, I believe in small government. And then you understand these people are smart enough to understand that these things are wrong, and yet they still vote for them. And that's why I almost dislike libertarians more than I dislike some not super engaged conservatives, is because at least some of them are misdirected. There are a lot of libertarians who aren't misdirected. They're just selfish. And so with Marco Rubio, that's how I feel, because he knows that this is wrong. It is written all over his face that he knows this is wrong, and yet he's still going along with it. For what?
We have Marco Rubio. We know who to blame if anything goes wrong. Think of it. He got 100 votes.
I've never been more embarrassed for a grown man in my life than I was watching Marco Rubio's reaction to Trump saying that last night, because it might seem like a joke, but it's not. Marco Rubio at one point was a serious presidential contender, and Trump emasculated him and embarrassed him so seriously by calling him things like Little Marco that nobody took him seriously. And so now Marco Rubio is having to try to crawl on his hands and his knees back to some semblance of relevance and trust within the Republican MAGA base. And how he's doing that is by debasing himself. It's embarrassing. And it's dangerous, not just for the United States, but for everyone on a global scale. Ugh. So Adam Schiff, as always, 100% right. Another really insane thing that happened last night at the State of the Union, at the very start, was Congressman Al Green was removed by the Sergeant at Arms after disrupting President Trump's speech, which theoretically, I don't necessarily disagree with the decision to remove him. I understand why they did it, but I also think it was very poignant because I feel like a lot of the responses that I initially saw from Democrats just fell really flat. And I was like, ooh, you go, Al Green. We got this baller ass picture of Congressman Green standing up. Al Green is not new to this. He is true to this because he is the same congressman who pulled up to vote while Democrats had a slim majority in a wheelchair and a hospital gown because they needed a vote. They needed his vote. This was his response to that today.
And I did it with intentionality. The president indicated that he had a mandate. I said to the president, you do not have a mandate. I have constituents who need Medicaid. They will suffer and some will die if they don't get Medicaid. I heard the speaker when he said that I should cease. I did not, and I did not with intentionality. I think that on some questions of conscience, you have to be willing to suffer the consequences. And I have said I will.
Check the shirt. Get in good trouble. Period. I know there are a lot of people who were very critical of this, and I understand that I'm looking at this as a tried and true, tried and blue Democratic voter. You will not catch me voting for a Republican, and I'm sick of this shit that's been going on because I know exactly what's going on because of how plugged in I am. So I personally loved it. Thought I loved it. Now Republicans are moving to censure him. As someone who was at the 2023 State of the Union where Marjorie Taylor Greene was acting like an absolute goddamn fool, I think that this is ridiculous because she did the whole thing and she got to stay. And Jamie Raskin had some things to say about this.
Donald Trump, President Trump, called a U.S. Senator from Massachusetts, Pocahontas,
True.
using an ethnic slur to go after her. So
That would be Elizabeth Warren.
Did you really want to proceed to censure the gentleman from Texas for talking about no mandate to cut Medicaid? Then certainly we're going to have to move to censure the president for using a racial and ethnic slur against a sitting United States senator. But I would prefer to stand by the tradition of free speech.
Before the State of the Union even really started, there were two big things that I immediately clocked. The first was, as Trump was walking in, Congresswoman Melanie Stansbury, who is a Democrat, was holding up a sign. It said, "This is not normal." And you can see a Texas representative, Lance Gooden, rips this sign out of her hand. Look at this. So you see him shaking Trump's hand right here, right now. That's him, Lance Gooden. And then you see her here over here with the sign right here. And then, let's see, right there, he rips the sign out of her hand. First of all, if that man had done that to me, the verbal lashing I would have given him, I would have made him cry. Donald Trump in his speech is talking about, we're bringing back freedom of speech to America. It's going to be huge. And then in that same time period, you have a Republican ripping this tiny little protest sign out of the hands of a Democratic colleague. And you have Congressman Al Green being kicked out by the sergeant at arms at the direction of Speaker Mike Johnson. There was another point where Trump is just like, oh my God, he's praising Elon Musk like a little fanboy. And the camera cuts to Elizabeth Warren and she's just scrolling on her. It's so funny. It's so funny. You know what? Whatever group chat it was that she was messaging in, you know it was good. You know it was good. I want to give a special shout out here to Adam Mockler, who he has his own YouTube channel. You guys should go subscribe to that. He does a lot of stuff with Midas Touch, who shouts out Midas Touch. We love them. He was busting his ass last night, interviewing people. Fantastic job. But one of the people who he talked to last night was the new chair of the DNC, Ken Martin. And he was asking people, you know, if you could say something to Trump or you could say something to Elon, what would you say? This was the response from the new DNC chair, Ken Martin, who, by the way, I actually got to meet him at an event here in Houston a few weeks ago. And oh my God, did I feel so reassured listening to him. The competence, the passion. You had people at that meeting that I went to with Ken Martin who were progressive, who were more moderate, who were very liberal center-left voters. Everyone walked out of that room in agreement. He got everyone in that room to kind of be in agreement that he was reassuring. And I think that that's a very powerful thing that he's able to do. And I hope that he'll bring a lot of that unity and cooperation to the party and kind of stifle some of this division that we see so often. Here's his answer to the question from Adam Mockler.
What would be your message to Elon Musk and his teenage Doge dudes who are currently firing for civil service?
Well, go to hell. I mean, the reality is what you're doing is destroying our country right now, all to make more money for yourself, all to steal data so you can help build your companies. What you're doing is wrong, and at the end of the day, we're watching. The American people are fed up, and it's not working.
Go to hell, you Doge bags. I mean, he's right. Now, this was some good energy. This was a little bit fire, a little bit heat. Nobody even comes close to Jasmine Crockett. Listen, I'm just gonna play you the video.
If you could tell Donald Trump anything tonight, what would you tell him?
I would tell him to grow a spine and stop being Putin's
Look, y'all, this is Jasmine. This is Jasmine Crockett. That's how she is. You know what? People will give her a lot of flack because they'll say she's not professional enough. She cusses too much. She's too... Let's take a moment and reflect on where we're at as a country right now. Who's in the White House? Who is in the White House right now? And we want to talk about aggressiveness and professionality. Get the out of my face. And in terms of loyalty and energy for a politician, here are January 6thers. Here's me for Jasmine Crockett. Would I commit a coup? No. Would it cross my mind? Perhaps. This is in 1984. You can't report me for my thoughts. Okay, would I actually do it? No, because I'm not a criminal. And because I value democracy, I would never do something like that. Would it cross my mind? Yes. We had this very energetic, very passionate response from a lot of Democrats that was a little less polished, a little more authentic and casual. And then we had some responses from Democrats that were very put together, that were very high quality. And one of those Democrats in particular was Senator Elissa Slotkin from Michigan, who was selected to do the Democratic response to the State of the Union. And I'm going to be honest with you. When I first watched her response, and I was on live watching this, I was actually kind of mad because I felt like she wasn't angry enough. I felt like she didn't have the right tone. After kind of simmering down and really thinking about it, I actually think she did a really great job. And I say that because at the beginning of her video, or at the beginning of her speech, she made a point about she was standing in a district that in November she won and Donald Trump won. And as much as I love to enjoy every single thing I see from a Democrat, the reality is sometimes the message is not for me. I'm a guaranteed Democratic voter. And I don't think that response last night was meant specifically for guaranteed Democratic voters. I think that response last night was meant for the country in general. With that being in mind, I think she did a really great job.
The president talked a big game on the economy, but it's always important to read the fine print. So,
read the fine print.
Actually help Americans get ahead. Not even close. President Trump is trying to deliver an unprecedented giveaway to his billionaire friends. He's on the hunt to find trillions of dollars to pass along to the wealthiest in America. And to do that, he's going to make you pay in every part of your life. Grocery and home prices are going up, not down, and he hasn't laid out a credible plan to deal with either of those. His tariffs on allies like Canada will raise prices on energy, lumber, and cars, and start a trade war that will hurt manufacturing and farmers. Your premiums and prescriptions will cost more because the math on his proposals doesn't work without going after your health care. Meanwhile, for those keeping score, the national debt is going up, not down. And if he's not careful, he could walk us right into a recession. And one more thing. In order to pay for his plan, he could very well come after your retirement. The Social Security, Medicare, and VA benefits you worked your whole life to earn.
I also want to point out here, Elissa Slotkin's guest to the State of the Union was a Marine veteran who was fired by the federal government because of Doge from the VA. So when she's saying this, like, this is not a hypothetical that she's saying. Her guest to the State of the Union was a veteran who has already suffered the consequences of Donald Trump being president.
The president claims he won't, but Elon Musk just called Social Security the biggest Ponzi scheme of all time.
Isn't that insane? The richest man in the world, who has made just disgusting amounts of his wealth from government subsidies and government contracts, says that Social Security is the biggest Ponzi scheme in the world. Are we serious here right now? It's just ridiculous. She was clear, she was concise. I think that her delivery was competent. And that might sound like an insult, but I don't mean it in a derogatory way. I mean it in a, people who were watching her response very likely also just watched Donald Trump's State of the Union, or at least part of it, and just saw chaos, incompetence, disorganization, catastrophe. And to watch that and contrast that to then watching Elissa Slotkin deliver a very concise, clear, competent, professional message, I think that that contrast is going to be really important to a lot of the swing voters in really important states and important districts who their lives are going to be affected by what Donald Trump is doing. And so I at first I was mad, but upon further reflection, I think she did a great job. She was a strong pick. Personally could have done without the praising of Ronald Reagan, but I understand why she did it. So again, not everything is for me. Another elected official who did a response to the State of the Union was Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker.
Here's the truth. It's simple. Tariffs are a tax on Americans. When you buy something, you pay the tariff, not some foreign country. Trump's tariffs will raise the price on things like tomatoes and prescription medicines, electronics, toys, and more. Grocery prices are rising because of Trump's tax. New car prices are rising because of Trump's tax. Beer prices are rising because of Trump's tax.
As someone who is close to WrestleMania, I don't want my beer or my tequila prices to go up because I'm an American patriot who likes my drinks strong and cheap, okay?
Has no plan for what happens next. He doesn't care about the farmer who relies on machinery from Canada to operate their farm, or the small business owner who needs supplies from Europe, or the parents who need to feed their families every day at a reasonable cost. While Trump is causing higher prices in Illinois, lowering the burden on working families is what we're all about. We've eliminated the grocery tax and raised the minimum wage. We lowered income taxes on workers and erased medical debt for nearly 300,000 Illinoisans, with more to come. And while we can't combat every part of Trump's tax, it's a start. Protecting Illinoisans from the economic hardship Trump is imposing is one of my most important missions as your governor.
I mean, absolutely solid. You know, clear, concise, to the point. Simple, simple, simple. I want everyone to keep this in mind when thinking about Democratic messaging. The average reading level in America, I believe, is a 6th grade level. Really absorb that information. We gotta be simple and clear in our messaging. I think a big part of the problem Democrats have had is that our party has become very intellectualized in our messaging. We're very smart, we're intelligent, we're factual, we're correct, but sometimes it gets really boring. Sometimes it's overwhelming. People don't want to listen, and so they tune out. And I think that we have to do a much better job at being simple in our delivery and clear in our message. And I think both Elissa Slotkin, J.B. Pritzker, Adam Schiff, I think they all did a really great job at doing that. So that is the state of our union. You know, everything that Senator Slotkin, Governor Pritzker said, it's just true. You know, costs are going to go up. People are going to suffer. There's going to be potential cuts to Medicaid, things like that. That is it for today's video. I want to encourage you to become a subscriber to my Substack here if you're not already. Also like to ask you, if you're not, to consider becoming a paid subscriber because it's how I pay my bills. So consider becoming a paid subscriber. Also, I want to let you know that every Friday I put out a newsletter called Ask and Act, where I answer questions and I break down some of the important topics that have gone on throughout the week, and I give you action items if you're interested. One of the topics from last week, just to give you an idea, was there is this question of, can Elon Musk and Republicans impeach judges who rule against Trump? The very short answer with the complicated background is not really. They can't. I break down how they're not really going to be able to do that in that newsletter. So that's just one example. So if you're interested in receiving the Ask and Act newsletter, you can subscribe. Make sure that you have email notifications turned on. And if you want to become a paid subscriber in my Substack chat, that is where I will field questions from. So if you want to ask me a question, if you want to have a one-on-one conversation, you can do that in my chat as a paid subscriber. $6 a month. $6 a month to give a starving political artist a little bit of hope and chance in this world. But all of that being said, I'm so grateful for each and every one of you who watches these videos. I love doing this. I want to keep doing this, and you all are the reason why I get to do that. So thank you very much for watching. That you have a better week than whatever the hell that State of the Union was last night. I want to say it can't get worse from here, but we all know the truth is it very likely could. So let's not hold our breath there.